All right. Good evening. My name is Stephen Barrett. They say at times I gotta let people know I'm a past master, but hey, we'll do that. A St. Mary's Lodge number 4 here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we got a treat for us today. We have a good friend, mentor, fellow that's getting ready to bring a lecture. One thing I was excited about, I posted this flyer and somebody under there was like, a description of this would be nice. And I kind of giggled. I was like, that's kind of part of the point. You gotta it's like what is this really going to be about? Like that's the whole point, right? You know what I mean? So like I enjoy it. That means that we're going down the right path, that people are engaging, having conversations. This man needs no introduction. We don't have enough time to ramble off his resume. We're just gonna say, hey, the brother that does it all. We're gonna give it over to him. And like I said, I'll text you jokes while you're presenting too, just so I can try to throw you off, sir, because I love you so much. Because you know how.
I don't even look at my phone when I'm presenting. So nice
Okay, we
try there,
good.
buddy.
I know. What? Hey, without further ado, like I said, I want to introduce to everyone here and get ready for a good lecture here from my good friend Damien Jack. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Good evening, brothers, to all the brothers of St. Mary's Laws number 4, Worship Master Dr. Hernando Flowers, to all President past, masters, all brothers of St. Mary's Laws number 4, to all brothers of the jurisdiction of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Michigan. Want to say good evening to you all. It is good to be back in the state of Michigan. Thank you once again for the invitation. Usually, I would say, like the Baptist preachers say, I'm not going to keep you long, but I am going to tell you to hold on to your seats for this one because we're gonna dive into some things for a little bit here. Past Master Barrett, get off the mic for a minute. Get on the mic for a minute. Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can. It's not in the presenter mode though yet, but I can see your screen.
All right. Cool. As long as you can see it, we are good. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. Uh, Hold on, sorry about that. This is my apologies. I'm just trying to minimize this bar here. Hold on, let me get that over. Still there. Stephen, help me out for a minute. Can I minimize this bar at the top?
Yeah, you should be. The bar you should be able to move it over to the side. You talking about the one that says like that gives you like host capabilities of different stuff?
Yeah, the mute, stop video, all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
giving me
see.
an issue.
Mine's at the.
There we go.
All right, you good?
Yeah.
No worries.
All right, brother. So this evening, as it states, we are going to talk about the mind of the heart. Once again, we're going to be talking about the mind of the heart. So, as we get this started with this discussion, I want to ask this question: as you go forward, uh, get ready to go forward with your day. You get up, you're getting ready to start your day. You're getting ready to go about your daily routine. You do the thing, your normal stuff that you need to do to get ready to get out the door. And once you get out the door and you go forward with your day, I want to ask you this question: are you led by your mind or are you led by your heart? I want you to think on that for a minute. Are you led by your mind or are you led by your heart? Better yet, do you lead with your mind or do you lead with your heart? Now, the reason why I ask this question is because we have a tendency whenever we go about our day, of course, there are a lot of decisions that has to be made. And so when we come to decision making and trying to understand what decision making is, it is stated that this decision making is a process of formulating resolutions within the scope of influence, choosing the best possible option. Now, there are two words within this definition that I want you to pay close attention to, and that is the process and influence. The process is defined as a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end, and influence is the power or capacity of causing an effect in indirect or intangible ways. So basically, when it comes to decision making, I want to ask this question: what capacity causes your actions or steps when choosing the best possible option? Again, what capacity causes your actions or steps when choosing your best possible options? We're talking about decision making. Do you go to the capacity of your mind, or did you go to the capacity of your heart? Now, when we think about the mind and think about the heart, we deal with reasons and emotion. It is stated that reasons the ability to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. Of course, we know we learn about logic within the middle chamber. An emotion is a naturally instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationship with others. It is also instinctive or intuitive feeling as distinguished from reasoning or knowledge. It is the affective aspect of consciousness or feeling, right? An emotional state or reaction. So when we think about it, we have a tendency to put reason and emotion against each other. We pit them against one another as if they're in competition with each other, because we have the tendency to believe that in order to make sound decisions, in order to make you get the best possible option, that we have to use the capacity of our mind rather than the capacity of our heart, because we feel that with our mind we deal with mainly reason and logic, whereby the heart we just deal with emotion. Now, of course, we learn within the middle chamber that logic teaches us how to form clear and distinct ideas and prevents us from being misled by similitudes or resemblances. And it is also said that logic guides our reason discretionally in the general knowledge of things. It directs our inquiries after truth and consists of a regular argument whence we infer, deduce, and conclude according to certain premises is laid down, is admitted or granted. And in it are employed the faculties of conceiving, judging, reasoning, and disposing, all of which are naturally led from one graduation to another till the point in question is determined. So when we think about logic, we think about forming these clear ideas. We think about, we use, these faculties of, conceiving. We use these faculties of judging. We use these faculties of reasoning. Whenever there's a question or a situation that we have to solve, we use these ideas in order to, form these clear and distinct ideas. And so again, a lot of times we have a tendency to believe that we mainly have to make these decisions or come to the best possible options by the use of our mind versus the use of our heart. Well, now, what is the heart? How would one describe the heart? Well, the heart is defined as being the seat of life, where emotion, reason, will, intellect, and the purpose of mind. It is the first organ that is developed within the fetus. So when a baby is being born, the first organ that is developed is the heart. So when everything that comes after that, basically, with the baby is born from the inside out. So when we think about the heart, and um, we think about what the heart entails. The heart mainly could be more than just reason, more than just emotion. It can be the use of all those things that that we talk about. It can be the intellect. It can be the will. It can be the purpose of mind, because again, these are the first, this is the first organ that is developed within the fetus. Now, did you know that a heart has around 40,000 neurons and a network of neurotransmitters, and that 60% of the heart cells are nerve cells, and that the heart is the only organ that can send messages independently to the brain. Now that's very important. When we think about the mind, um, when we think about how we use our mind versus we how we use our heart, this is basically saying this is the one that basically has a direct connection to the brain. What you see here in this picture is known as the electromagnetic field or the toroidal field. Now, the toroidal field of the heart is said to be 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. And it is said that each individual's thoughts, attitudes, and emotions emit energetic fields. These individual fields and environments not only affect you, your health, and perspective on life, they can also influence your relationships and experiences in your social field environments as you interact with people, even if you are merely in the same room with other people. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. Think about this electromagnetic field or this toroidal field. You ever walk into any room, and next thing you know, you feel that, the vibe isn't right, the energy isn't right. I like to use vibe. Those who understand me know I like the seven hermetic principles, and we could talk about the principles of vibration, but this goes along with that. You give off energy. We all give off energy. So even if you're in a room with somebody and you just meet someone for the first time, you could tell whether you're going to whether you're going to have a good interaction with that person or not, because their energy just may not be right. And have you ever noticed if that person's energy isn't right, then your energy can be the same. So you have to think about that. So that energy that we talk about, it comes from the heart. Yes, the brain has this electromagnetic field as well, but as we learned, the heart's field is bigger than the brain's field. So when you hear or when you feel that energy from somebody, you're feeling it more from that person's heart than from anything. And when it comes to that, there is a science to that, which is known as the psychophysiological coherence. Psycho, which comes from psychological, meaning mental and emotions, physiological, meaning the physical body, and coherence, meaning the systematic or logical connection. So, what psychophysiological coherence is basically the systematic connection between the mind, the body, and the emotions. Now, when we talk about coherence, basically we're talking about how things are properly working versus how it's improperly working. We have a tendency, or science society has a tendency to believe that coherently your brain should be sending messages to the heart, and that your brain should be the one that should be leading things, that should be moving things forward. What this particular science is telling you is that true coherence happens when it is your heart that is leading your brain, and not vice versa. It is said that in our research on the physiological correlates of positive emotions, we found that when certain positive emotional states such as appreciation, compassion, or love are intentionally maintained, coherent heart rhythm patterns can be sustained for longer periods, which also leads to increased synchronization and entertainment between multiple bodily systems. Because it is characterized by distinctive psychological and behavioral correlates, as well as by specific patterns of physiological activity throughout the body, we introduced the term psychophysiological coherence to describe this mode of functioning. So again, when you give off positive vibes, or that energy that we was talking about, when you give off positive vibes and you're able to sustain it for a long period of time, and being led by your heart, you're basically giving off good energy, and it's basically able to sustain for a long period of time, and it affects not just your mind but your body as well. So that's something to think about. Now, the within the volume of sacred law known as the lessons of Tanya. Lessons of Tanya is the main work based on all concepts of the Shabbat Hiddicism. Now, the Shabbat is an acronym for Shakma, Binah, and Dot, or wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And Hasidicism is the movement within Judaism stressing the service of God through the mystical, in addition to the legalistic dimension of Judaism, the power of joy, love of God and one's fellow, an emotional environment in prayer, finding godliness in every aspect of one's existence, and the elevation of the material universe. Now, within the lesson of Tanya, you learn a particular characteristic known as the Benoni. The Benoni is a name is given to one who constantly strives in his service to God. He struggles against his selfish drives and always wins the battle. But unlike the righteous man, his evil inclination is alive and well, and he must continually fight. So every day the Benoni has a fight between good and evil, and he's fighting to make sure that the good wins all the time. Now, within the lessons of Tanya, it talks about the left and right, basically the left part of the heart versus the right part of the heart. It states in chapter 12 that the left part of the heart contains the evil side, or the animal soul's principal area of manifestation, while the right part of the heart contains the good side, where the divine soul is manifest. So it states in chapter 12 that contemplating God's greatness within the three intellectual faculties, which is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, or the Shabbat, it arouses and diffuses the love of God, the right part of the heart. This arousal of love causes the evil of the animal soul, the left part of the heart, to be nullified in the good of the divine soul, now pervading the heart. During the time of prayer, therefore, when the Benoni arouses his love of God through meditation, his animal soul is inactive and he feels no inclination or physical pleasures. So now, of course, our, within our order, we learn that we're not supposed to enter any great and important undertaking without invoking the aid of deity. So we learn through this that, through prayer, through meditation, you arouse your love of God, and from there you can quiet the soul's principle, animal soul's principle of manifestation. So again, we learn this within the lessons of Tanya, that constant fight between good and evil, which of course also we learn in the order. Now that I've given you, basic explanation of, first of all, what the heart is, how important the heart is, your heart's energy, and how strong your heart's energy is. How do we incorporate this all with masonry? We have to understand, of course, with masonry is all about action. Masonry is all about application. So how do we apply this to masonry, and how do we learn this through the principle of masonry? Well, the first and what I consider the most important question in all of masonry: where were you first prepared to be made a mason? Again, where were you first prepared to be made a mason? Again, when we go back and understand the definition of the heart, the heart is the first organ that is developed within the fetus, and everything from there goes from the inside out. To be prepared is to be made ready beforehand for some purpose, use, or activity. So to be made ready to be made a mason, you first have to be prepared in the heart. And everything from there goes from the inside out, right? Then we move forward and talk about being unregenerate and being ignorant. To be unregenerate means to be unrepentant and not spiritually renewed. We learn about this within the symbolism of an entered apprentice, when it says, coming from the ignorance and darkness of the outer world, his first craving is for light. And that the entered apprentice is that type of unregenerate man groping in moral and mental darkness. Now, within the metaphysical Bible, it says that the heart of the unregenerate man is both good and evil, but the evil is without foundation in being and has no sustaining power of outside man's belief in its reality. When the heart is purged of all thoughts adverse to good, man consciously contacts the underlying God substance. So, of course, we learn that the purpose of the inner repentance is the birth of intellectual light into the mind, and that the inner repentance is that type of unregenerate man groping in moral and mental darkness. But of course, in order to prepare his mind, you have to what? First prepare his heart, right? So it says within the Bhagavad Gita that therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed with the weapon of knowledge. So we learn that in the, within the first degree, we are in the state of ignorance. We have to come out of that ignorance and into knowledge. And again, to prepare our minds, we have to first prepare our heart, right? And we learn this and understand this, especially within the Master Mason degree and being received. We learn that within the breast contains the most vital parts of man. And what is that most vital part of man? That being your heart. Moving forward, as you came in, of course, we know through all facets of the ceremonies of initiation, we had to be hoodwinked. The question was why were we hoodwinked? Well, there were three reasons why we were hoodwinked, but the first one is that our heart might conceive or understand before our eyes beheld the beauty of masonry. We had to understand it within our heart first before we were able to see it. It is said in Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Proverbs 2:1 and 2 says, my son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding. It almost reminds you of the precious jewels, right? The attentive ear, the instructive tongue, and the faithful breast. If you turn your ear to wisdom, apply your heart to understanding. So as we're going around in the ceremonies of initiation, it was the hope that our heart might understand before our eyes beheld the beauty of masonry. Again, that preparation. We first had to be prepared before we went upon this journey. Now, within Scottish Freemason or Scotch Freemason, as an apprentice, during the ceremonies of initiation, there are three journeys within the entered apprentice degree that a candidate would go through. I was mainly focused on the second voyage of the entered apprentice because it mainly states during this time you're taken within the lodge. You're going in different directions. You go south to east, you go east to west, you go north to south, and you do this about 3 times. And again, about 3 times in each voyage. So it is said that in the second voyage that this voyage is a symbol of the contention in man's heart for the supremacy of the good and evil principles, teaching him that the character of the predominating principle within him is determined by his own will and choice, each carrying with it its own immediate consequences, that good actions lead to cheerful content, and that the prevalence of evil passions lead to bitter remorse. But it goes on to say that his heart could be purified from its uncleanness by sincere repentance, and this idea is renewed and strengthened in our minds by the symbol of water. So, with the repentant tear over the corruptions of man's heart, it restores him to purity with his maker and with himself. Finally, it goes on to say that his history and tradition teaches us that the tradition of Scotch Freemasonry has ever been distinguished for its ennobling and chastening or humbling influence over the human heart. So even as you go through within Scotch Freemason, as you go through these ceremonies of initiation, again, it talks about the importance of the heart and basically winning that fight between good and evil. Again, preparing your heart in order to give you these tools in order to win that fight between good and evil. Now, within the order, of course, we learned about subduing our passions. That is what we came to do, to learn to subdue our passions and improve ourselves within the order. One of the ways that we learn of subduing our passions, we learn through the common gavel. Through the common gavel, it instructs us that we are divesting our heart and consciousness of all vices and superfluities so that we can fit our minds as living stones. Remember, when we go back to that psychophysiological coherence and how the heart should lead the mind, not the mind leading the heart, notice her first, in order for our mind to be in a certain place, we first have to divest our heart of these things. John Calvin once said that the human heart has so many crannies where vanity hides, so many holes where falsehood works, It is so decked out with deceit and hypocrisy that it often dupes itself. The evil in our desires typically does not lie in what we want, but that we want it too much. Let me say that again. The evil in our desires typically does not lie in what we want, but that we want it too much. Now, Past Master Barrett, I know we're here in the Blue House. I know I could take that further along somewhere else and talk a little bit about ambition, but we'll do that, for another day. It is said in Mark 7:20 through 23, where Jesus went on to say that what comes out of a person is what defiles them, for it is within, out of a person's heart, that evil comes: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person. And so basically what it said, like what you see on the outside is basically what's coming from within. Within the Bhagavad Gita, it says, being freed from attachment, fear, anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Notice when we talk about speculative Freemasonry, we talk about how it's so interwoven with religion that it causes us to pay homage to the deity and that once constituting our own happiness. So when we sit there and we talk about that and we understand that having that knowledge coming out of that ignorance, not just fitting our minds and putting light into our minds, but we have to put it into our hearts first so that our minds can truly store it and understand it. Psalms 51:10 says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Again, going back to the Bhagavad Gita, it states that the supreme personality of the Godhead, how have these impurities come upon you? They are all not befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. O son of Pertha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. We continue to learn about how we have to have a pure heart and how we have to divest our heart and our conscience of all vices and superfluities. We learn that through the symbol of the pot of incense, which is an emblem of a pure heart. Continually glow with gratitude to our beneficent Creator for the manifold blessings and comforts we enjoy. And again, this goes back to, the why were we neither naked nor clothed? Well, this is all about the internal and the external. We have learned not to look at the external of a man, but to look at the internal of him, to look at his heart. And it reminds me of the story when God told Samuel to go to Jesse's house, because from there he was going to anoint the next king. And we know and we understand that Samuel went and Jesse picked all of his sons, and they, none of them were in until he got to the last son. Samuel said, well, do you have anyone left? And he said, well, I do have one. He's young. He's basically, he's frail. All of his other, sons, they had the physical capabilities. They were, strong and mighty and things like, David wasn't none of these. But when he went to David and he looked at David, that was him. And he anointed David. And it said in 1 Samuel 16:7, but the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Again, we learn to look at the internal and not the external. What does a person's heart say to you? Again, that toroidal field, that energy. You can feel what that person is and what they are projecting. That energy is everything. We even learn it when it comes to our speech. Again, when we go back to Mark 7, from what comes from inside of a man, it defiles us, right? What comes from the heart. So basically, when we're talking and when we have to say something, what is the one thing that we always say? Hey, I may not have this down, but this is coming from my heart, right? So think about rhetoric. It says in rhetoric, to be an eloquent speaker is far from being either a common or easy attainment. It is the heart, is the art of being persuasive and commanding. The art not only of pleasing the fancy, but of appealing both to the understanding and to the heart. By me talking in the rhetoric that I'm giving you today, I'm trying to, have you understand the importance of your heart, how important your heart is, and how, you know, we should think more and lead more with our heart as opposed to leading with our mind, because again, what comes from our heart is what's going to be seen by other people. Even when we learn truth being a divine attribute and the foundation of every virtue, it is said to be good and true was the first lesson we're taught in masonry. Hence, while influenced by this principle, hypocrisy and deceit are unknown among us. Sincerity and plain dealing distinguish us, and the heart and tongue join in promoting each other's welfare and rejoicing in each other's prosperity. The heart and tongue join in promoting each other's welfare and rejoicing in each other's prosperity. Notice how, if someone congratulates you on being successful on achieving a goal, you can mainly tell if that person is sincere in what they're saying, if they're true in what they believe in what's coming out of their mouth, mainly because of how they're saying it, and then the tone that they give and the energy that they bring that's really coming from their heart. So sometimes what people are saying is not necessarily true because it's not coming from the right place. We're talking about that energy, that toroidal field again, and how that the field of the heart is so powerful. Psalm 19:14 says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer." Even when it comes to music, those who understand me know how much I love music, and we could talk about music all day. We learn that how music is intelligible to the heart, and there are few who have not felt the effects of his passions, right? So it reminds me of the story of David and Saul. When Saul was he was the evil spirit from God had taken over him, and David had taken a harp and he played it with his hands, and so Saul was refreshed, and the evil spirit departed from him. You know what is that? What is that phrase that saying? Music soothes the savage beast. Well, how does it soothe it? Because it's intelligible to the heart. Think about it. When you think about your all-time favorite song, or if you play a song from back in the day, where it takes you and the memories that it comes up. Remember, the heart is the seat of life, the seat of will, the seat of reason, the seat of emotion. It is the seat of all that, and it includes your memories as well. So how does that song, or that melody, how does that affect you, right? Moving forward, even when it comes to working, even when it comes to the beehive being the emblem of industry, it is said in Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters. Throughout speculative Freemasonry, we learn to revere and trust God. We understand, like I said, before a great and important undertaking, we ought to invoke the aid of deity. So we learn that within speculative Freemasonry that we pay homage to the deity, that we dedicate to him our heart, purified from every malignant passion. When you filled out a petition to join the ranks of this order, it was asked, do you believe in God or a higher being? You are asked if you were caused if you were sent to the center of the lodge and caused to kneel for the benefit of prayer. And after the prayer, it asks you the question, in whom do you put your trust? And the first duty of a Mason is to who? It is said within the Bhagavad Gita 15:15 that God is seated in everyone's heart. And from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. When we think about the symbolism of a master mason, it says, above all and beyond all, it taught you to bend with humility and resignation before the grand architect of the universe, to dedicate to him your heart, thus purified of every malignant passion. Matthew 5:8 says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Of course, one of the passages of scripture I'm sure we all know, Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 16:9 states, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Humans plan their course in their heart, but the Lord establishes their steps. It kind of reminds me of rise, follow your conductor, and fear no danger, right? Psalms 138:1 says, I will praise you, Lord, with all my heart. Before the gods, I will sing your praise. Then I'm reminded when we stood in the northeast corner. We stood an upright man and mason and charged to ever walked and acted such before God and man. It is said in the Ahimad reside that in the important ceremony which refers to the northeast corner of the lodge, the candidate becomes as one who is to all outward appearance a perfect and upright man and mason, the representative of a spiritual cornerstone on which he is to erect his future moral and Masonic edifice. This symbolic reference of a symbolic cornerstone of a material edifice to a mason, when at his first initiation, he commences the moral and intellectual task of erecting a spiritual temple in his heart. And it's beautifully sustained when we look at all the qualities that are required to constitute a well-tried, true, and trusty cornerstone. I think about that when we're building that spiritual temple, and it says that we have to, we look at the qualities that are required to constitute a well-tried, true, and trusty cornerstone. Well, what are those qualities? Those qualities for me, I found in the Bhagavad Gita 16:1-3. The Supreme Personality of the Godhead said that fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, or I'll say study of whatever volume of sacred law that you study, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from anger and from the passion of honor. These transcendental qualities belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Now, doesn't that sound like the qualities within the lessons and principles that we've learned in the order? Doesn't that sound like when we stand there in the northeast corner and charged to ever walk and act as an upright man and mason, that these are the qualities that we should possess, that should come from within us, so that when people see us, they see what a man and a mason should be? Kind of like the address to the candidate at the end of the first degree, that others will know that in becoming a mason, you became a better man. But in order to have that, all of these qualities that you see is what we have to use the common gavel for, to divest those vices and superfluities and have those qualities, develop those qualities within us, build that spiritual temple within us, and build and be that man, not just by word, but by deed, but by action. How do we show it? Again, and also another question that I think is important within the orders. How do you know yourself to be? Everyone here knows the answer to that question. It is said that to be tried is to be found good, faithful, or trustworthy through experience or testing. Remember, the words from Master charge you to walk and act, not just speak, act. It's one thing to say that you have changed, but your actions will show that you have. And in order to show that you have changed, of course, we are all going to be tested. Just like our faith is tested. It is said in Psalms 139, verses 23 to 24, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me. Lead me in the way everlasting. Test me. Try me. You know, when I asked, are you a fellow crab? I said, I am. Try me. Test me and see. We're all going to be tested. And it's through that test we're going to find out what's truly in our heart. Even when it comes to justice, which is one of the symbols in the Master Mason, the sword pointing to the naked heart, that teaches us that justice will sooner or later overtake us. In 1 Corinthians 4 and 5, it says, therefore, judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. At that time, each will receive praise from their God. Jeremiah 17:10 says, I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. He examines the mind, but he searches the heart. Because as we remember in 1 Samuel, people look at the outer appearances, but God searches the heart. But in the Holy Quran, the 11th chapter, the 11th surah, verse 5, it says, behold, they fold up their hearts that they may lie hid from him. Even when they cover themselves with their garments, he knoweth what they conceal and what they reveal. For he knoweth the inmost secrets of the hearts. And it goes on in the 28th surah, verse 69, and the Lord knows what their hearts conceal and what they reveal. And think about it, when we think about the fellowcraft degree, and we think about that, in my opinion, is the degree of judgment. You think about the penalty of a fellowcraft, that your heart and lung is taken to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Your heart, not your mind, but your heart. Right? And even going back to Scottish Freemason and Scottish Freemasonry, in the Master Mason, it tells you, happy is the man who can lay down to his final rest with a conscience void of offense towards God and man. And he is parting from earth, and he can view the fading seas of his life with a forgiving and repenting heart. Now, when it comes to the point of death, we hope and understand that the Master Mason's degree talks about the preparation for death. It is said within the Upanishads that when the body and mind grows weak, the self gathers in all the powers of life and descends with them into the heart. As prana or energy leaves the eye, it ceases to see. He is becoming one, says the wise. He does not see. He is becoming one. He no longer hears. He is becoming one. He no longer speaks or tastes or smells or thinks or knows. By the light of the heart, the self leaves the body by one of its gates. And when he leaves, the prana or energy follows, and with it all the vital powers of the body. He who is dying merges into consciousness, and thus consciousness accompanies him when he departs, along with the impressions of all he has done, experienced, and known. So within the Upanishads is basically saying, when you are reaching the point of death, everything that you have done, everything, that you have done in this life, it gathers within your heart. We just gone from scripture where it talks about how the Lord examines the mind, but he searches the heart, and you will be rewarded as such. So all of you that you have done will be searched into the first organ that is developed in the fetus, within the seed of life. the seat of will, the seat of intellect, the seat of emotion. Everything goes to the heart. Now, in ancient Egypt, within the Egyptian culture, when a person dies, they will go to what is known as the Hall of Two Truths. This is found within the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and within spell number 125. And basically, what this is what happens is when you have gone from labor to refreshment, your heart is placed on a scale of justice, and it must balance with the feather of truth. During this time, you must recite what is known as the negative confessions, which is 42 statements, saying what you have done and what you have not done. And basically, your heart must balance with this feather of truth. And if this balance is achieved, one goes to the field of reeds, which in some place you can constitute as being heaven. Your soul, you're basically in a place of joy forever. But if you do not achieve balance, you will go into what is known as the Dua. And it is said in the Scottish Rite Monitor that the strong who easily resist temptation and are less deserving of the reward than the weak who struggle to overcome. To rise and fall again is more heroic than by greater strength never to fall. To do wrong and to make amends, to sin and repent belongs to a nobler nature. By being human, we all err, we all make mistakes. Those who hold different opinions entertain them as honestly as you do your own, and you have no right to doubt their sincerity. One man is truly wise who is not kind, courteous, charitable in his construction of another man's motives. Again, and that goes to the heart and the tongue, promoting each other's welfare, learning that in truth, right? So what I want to give you is a couple of scenes. First of all, those who know me know that I am a Marvel man. So this scene comes from Moon Knight. Check this out.
Where did you say we're going? We're sailing to our route. To the field of reed, right, Taweddy?
Oh, so he's the smart one, hey? Well, if your heart's balanced in life, then you will spend eternity in paradise. The field of reeds. But before we get there, I've just got to do a quick little... Oh, goody! It worked! Look at that! It was little old me worrying I'd blow your chest wide open.
Sorry, what? What's she doing? Oh, she's weighing our hearts on the scales of justice and the feather of truth. See, the ancient Egyptians believed that the heart was the sign of who you really were in life. If the scales balance by the time you end the journey, then a soul is permitted to pass into the field of reeds. What if they don't balance?
You get thrown overboard. Whee! The dead will drag you down into the duat, where you will remain forever, frozen in sand. No unbalanced souls on my boat. Them's the rules. Fingers crossed for you guys, hey?
And so here's another example, and this comes from the series American Gods, which was on Stars.
We shall see if you have used it well.
I was unkind to the first boy who loved me. I stole the doll once from my cousin. I tried my best.
Your best is good. Each will take you to the duet. The duet has many worlds. Choose.
which has my father. He beat me, and I would like not to see his world.
Choose.
You are a kind boy. You choose for me? Are you sure I do this with you? Follow the wrong God. I do not see my Tita again.
So again, just getting the understanding of how important the heart is. So when we talk about the heart again, and we talk about how the the heart deals with with emotion. And again, I asked the question, how do you lead? Do you lead with your mind, or do you lead with your heart? And people try not to lead with their heart because they feel like if they're lead by emotion that they will go down the wrong path. There is a such thing that is known as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to blend thinking and feeling to make optimal decisions. It's being smarter with feelings. And there are three pursuits in this: self-awareness, which is clearly seeing what you do and feel; choice, do what you do it for a reason; and purpose, do it for a reason. Or basically, know yourself, choose yourself, and give yourself. Now, there are 8 particular skills when it comes to emotional intelligence. Enhancing emotional literacy, which is accurately identifying and interpreting both simple and compound feelings; recognizing patterns, because as we know, behavior is nothing but patterns. So with those patterns, acknowledging frequently recurring reactions and behaviors; apply consequential thinking, which is evaluating the costs and benefits of your choices; navigate emotions, which is assessing, harnessing, and transforming emotions as a strategic resource; engage intrinsic motivation, gaining energy from personal values and commitment versus being driven by external forces. There goes that external versus internal again. Exercise optimism, taking a proactive perspective of hope and possibility; increase empathy, recognizing and connecting with and appropriately responding to your emotions; and finally, pursuing noble goals, connecting your daily choices with your overarching sense of purpose. Now, why should we use emotional intelligence? Those who know me know that I love this picture that is on the right, the picture of the horse and chariot, with the 5 horses representing your senses, the reins representing your mind, the driver representing your intelligence, the chariot representing your body, and the passenger representing your soul, and how your senses can lead you down the wrong direction. So it is said that without the guidance of emotional learning and social feedback, rational thought and logical reasoning abilities are of little use. Emotions are the motivator, they're the push, they provide the oomph. To know that a decision is risky is one thing, but to feel the anxiety and appropriate fear associated with risk is quite another. It's the difference that makes the difference when coming to making a decision. Going back to that decision making, right? So we have to use our emotions when it comes to making decisions. We always say, leave emotions out of it. But if you leave emotions out of it, are you really making the right decision? And why do I use this picture? Because we know if we hear something, if we see something, if we smell something, feel something, our emotions are tied to that. So how do you feel when you do those things, and are you making the right decision? And so when we understand the heart and what the heart is, and we understand that we have to combine heart, we have to combine emotion and reasoning. It's hard to leave the emotion out of it. The emotion has to be included in that. So now we have to understand the proper way of using emotional intelligence. Or as my good brother Charles Harper says, if we have educated the mind but not the heart, we can still be emotionally ignorant. That is important to understand. So we understand that, okay, if we're making a decision with the mind and not using the heart, then we're still found in a level and in a place of ignorance, and know that is a place that we're trying to come out of. One of those things that helps us understand when it comes to emotions is one of the systems when it comes to the sensory system, and that is the interoceptive system. Now, this is the sensing internal stimuli from within our bodies, things like hunger, thirst, itch, needing to use the restroom, and our emotions. It says that different emotions produce different feelings in our bodies. Now, just imagine if you hungry, like we say, if your stomach is touching your back, what type of emotion is going to come from that? What type of decisions are you going to make when you're hungry? Do you make the proper decisions when you're hungry? Think about the Snickers commercial. Here, have a Snickers, because you don't make good decisions when you're hungry, right? Same thing when you're thirsty, when you got that itch that you can't scratch. But when you have to go to the restroom, you have that need to go to the restroom. What type of decisions are you making? And of course, your emotions, and your system. It affects all of the following. It affects your self-awareness. It affects your problem solving, your perspective taking, your social understanding, your flexible thinking, your intuition, and your emotional recognition and regulation. So think about that. All of that comes from internal stimuli. So how do you make the best decision when you have all these the stimuli coming from within? So again, can you leave emotion out? Can you leave emotion out of it? This is why we talk about the emotional intelligence. Brothers, I know I've filled your head with a lot this evening. As we conclude, there's a few things I want you to understand. It's said by Michael Snyder that nothing exists without a center which revolves around it, whether the nucleus of the atom, the heart of our body, the hearth of the home, the capital of a nation, the sun of the solar system, or the black hole of the core of the galaxy. When the center does not hold, the entire affair collapses. An idea or conversation is considered pointless, not because it leads nowhere, but because it has no center holding it together. The point is the source of the whole of wholes. It is beyond understanding, unknowable, silently self enfolded, but like a seed, a point will expand to fulfill itself as a circle. Kind of reminds you of that point within the circle, right? But like I said, nothing exists without the center, nothing exists without the heart. It is said by Jean-Marie Ragon, when it comes to masonry, it says, profit by all that is revealed to you. Improve your heart and your mind. Direct your passions to the general good. Combat your prejudices. Watch over your thoughts and actions. Love, enlighten, and assist your brethren. And you will have perfected that temple of which you are at once the architect, the material, and the workman. Walter Russell said, the great unanswered question of man has a simple answer. The silent voice within every man is ceaselessly whispering it to its awakening conscience. Every desire written upon the heart of man is carried to the source, and its answer will come. But few there are who comprehensively and as comprehensively, and fewer who still hear. Finally, James Allen says, as the reaper of his own harvest, man learns both by suffering and bliss. A man does not come to the almshouse or the jail by the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thoughts and base desires. Nor does a pure-minded man, excuse me, fall suddenly into crime by stress of any mere external force. The criminal thought had long been secretly fostered in the heart, and the hour of opportunity revealed its gathered power. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. So hopefully, brothers, you understand the importance of the heart. And finally, I leave you with this. The mind replays what the heart can't delete. Again, the mind replays what the heart can't delete. My brothers, I hope through this presentation, you have learned the importance of the heart. You have learned the importance of leading with your heart, of understanding your heart and how important the heart is, how important your heart is guided and can guide you throughout life. I thank you for the greatest gift that you could ever give me, and that is your time. So that is something that you cannot get back. God bless you all. So more be.
Hey, I appreciate that. So that's like you told me, you said you was gonna bring it. So there was some things that I have some notes that I wrote down. But before, like I said, as always, I start diving into it. I want to ask, does anybody have any questions for the presenter? Because like I said, there's a I saw the second degree in there and some other things, especially when you talk about the winding stairs. I think this is the practical application of those liberal arts and sciences, right? But yeah, like I want to open it up to anybody. Does anybody have any questions or comments here for our presenter?
I see a hand raised.
I didn't pop up on mine. Go ahead, go for it. Oh, Joe, there you go. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, brothers. Great lecture, brother Jack. That I guess I didn't even know it was a Bible scripture. Where your heart is, there you'll find your treasure. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a quote from The Alchemist too, with the herder. Like when he left, like he was trying to find his treasure, and he ended up, So yeah, but I had a question with the painting with the five horses. Like, what's the name of that? Because like that's kind of deep. So I wanted to like just spend some time on that too.
That picture is found within the Bhagavad Gita, which is the volume of sacred law for the Hindu faith. So if you was to Google the Bhagavad Gita and horse and chariot, you would find that. Again, basically what that says is that 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 your mind, your senses, your intellect, your senses, your mind, and your intellect are basically what drives lust, and the road that you're traveling down. Your senses can lead you down a road. So your mind should be able to overcome your senses. Your intellect should be able to overcome your mind, and your soul should be able to overcome all of it. So in order to overcome those lustful desires, or what they call in the Bhagavad Gita, from those attachments, that you are supposed to subdue the self by self. What that means is you subdue the self, the senses, the mind, into intellect by the self, the superior self, which is the soul.
Thank you.
I like it. I like it. And then Brother Bell.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to thank you, brother Damien Jack, for an outstanding demonstration. And I want to thank you as well, Past Master Barrett, for putting on these incredible lectures. Not so much a question. I just want to thank you for drawing the attention to the northeast corner where the candidate stands, and that cornerstone, that foundational cornerstone that is laid in every Masonic edifice. And for me, that kind of, it just struck near and dear to my heart. And just, it was like listening to you. A visual was laid in my mind. A door was unlocked. So for me, it was just outstanding. I just want to say thank you. I did want to point out that about the northeast corner and that charge that's given. That was incredible. Everything was outstanding, and the way, what I'm most thankful for whenever I listen to you speak or read what you've written is that you managed to weave in so many different volumes of sacred law, just to show that thread and that correspondence. And just overall, I just wanted to say thank you. That was it.
God is good. Thank you so much.
Hey, do we have anybody else that has any questions or comments? 'Cause like I said, it's a lot. So like I said, this is a perfect time, a safe place for us to kind of go through and say, hey, this is what we were thinking about. Why?
That's fine. As Master Jack, Whew. Listen, that lecture, it's sort of tied in to the lecture we had at the lodge Monday. And the thing that you brought up that I always had questions about is when people say, my mind always playing tricks on me.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just alluded to at the end, your mind is basically playing something. It basically is outweighing your heart to erase that memory. And that's how it basically overshadows your mind overshadows your heart a lot of time, because that's when them senses start kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's deep. It runs deep, man. And I definitely thank you for expounding on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does anybody else have? Now, I do have one question here, Toll. So you were talking about the, uh, I say it's called like, hey, vibing with somebody and understanding like that movement with their heart and such. So I want to know what your process was. Like, what led you down to tying the science, as well as through like some of the esoteric topics with being able to tie it all together. Like, kind of what led you down that path to look at the science of it.
Oh, well, easy. It was your fault.
Oh
Um,
shit, I literally didn't know that. I was just asking.
yeah,
I was curious.
yeah, because you basically had the unmitigated gall to introduce me to sacred geometry, and as I was, and as I was learning sacred geometry and watching some of the videos on YouTube, you know how basically they show you how sacred geometry just ties into everything, going into the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence and things like that. And I think I was watching a video, the one, the spirit science with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
cartoon type videos. And so
yeah.
we're talking about that long video. It was talking about Christ consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and was talking about, it started talking about the heart and got into the psychophysiological coherence, and gave just a tidbit of it. It scratched the surface. So that made me want to, dive into that. And it spoke about how, the heart is the first organ that is developed, within the
Mm-hmm.
fetus, and everything goes from the inside out. So just from there, it made me want to, dive into that. And I think, from there, of course, the light bulb popped in my head, where was you first prepared? And I just took off from there.
Mm. That's it. Like I said, that's interesting because, like I said, it's I've seen some things, and now there's this whole like shebang. We'll talk about offline that I'm into about having to deal with like water and like the creation of life and some other things. So just like something I figured out, well, not figure I figured out, but I heard just for people to kind of just for their edifice is at all the technology and science that we have here in this day and age, one thing man can't recreate is water. Like we have the atoms, we have the structure, we know what it is, but it takes so much of an insurmountable amount of energy and effort to do it. And then you go into other creation myths. I was reading the Quran earlier too, and it talks about this and life created out of water. Like it just all ties in, bro. So like I said, now we're on this kick, so we're gonna figure something out. But I'll present something to you later about it. But
Right.
yeah,
We know
brother.
that 75% of our body is made of what?
Yeah, bro, it's like something that you just can't recreate, bro. It's just it was mind blowing when I learned that. But brother Joe, I see brother Joe's hands up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just made some other connections. Well, something that was already on my mind. When you talked about like subduing your passions and like sometimes like your five senses or sometimes like your bodily needs or could like lead you to make certain decisions. And like I just thought about like someone that like getting it how they live. Like the person that gets it how they live until they could live a certain way, are they as wrong or are they wrong as the person that gets it how they live and just continues to live that way, you know? And it's like life, or, like I gotta eat, may make you to make some decisions that, like you normally wouldn't make under normal circumstances. So just thinking about those kind of things.
That sounds like the 31st degree, but we'll
So,
talk about
oh
that
my
later.
God,
We'll talk about that.
we was just talking about that. I just gave a presentation on that this past Sunday. There's a question that is asked. Is a person who steals a loaf of bread for his hungry children considered a thief? Um, as as I stated, as James Allen stated, and that quote from James Allen comes from the book As a Man Thinketh. Um, as he says, circumstances don't make the man; they reveal him to himself. So and the hour of opportunity that arises. So um, the only thing that I can say to that, and everybody's going to have a different answer for that. But I'll give you what I talked about in my lecture the other day. Um, it goes back to, if you remember the movie John Q with Denzel Washington and him trying to get a heart, huh, pun intended, a heart for his son, right? So he did everything that he tried to do. He tried to raise money. He didn't have the proper insurance. The insurance didn't cover it, and of course, having to be on the wait list and everything like that. Um, but um, at the end of the day, what ends up happening, his wife, tells him, do something. You know, circumstances revealed him to himself. He did what he had to do to save his son, but he still had to face the consequence of his actions, right? So uh when we talk about masonry, being about actions and the application of actions, applying what you learned to your life. He saved his son. He saved his son, but he still had to face the consequence of his actions. And every decision is going to have consequences, and you have to stand on those decisions. But you can't. We talk about it. It's easy for us to judge when we're not in that position. So I'm gonna leave it right there, because then we're gonna go ahead and go somewhere that we can't go. But hopefully, for that part, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Oh man, we got time for one or two more quick questions here, and then the wife gave me the look. You know what I mean? So we gonna we
Well,
gonna
you
make
don't have you don't have time for one or two questions. The look
yeah
means it's time to go. Like
yeah
that's
man. Nah, man. So thing is I do jujitsu in the morning, and so I got to get the kids ready because she's a be by herself in the morning. So I got to make sure we straight. Make sure the household
oh
straight.
well. That
Yeah.
means she gave you the look. I know. Listen. I know how the wife works. She gave you look number one. Look number two means you should be already off. So we're gonna go ahead and end this before you get to look number two.
Nah, man, I appreciate y'all. But like I said, this is awesome. Like I said, I will open up if somebody has one more question. Like I said, I don't want to. It's a good dialogue. There's a lot to digest. If you're interested in getting a copy of this, just shoot an email back to that registration. It'll pop back to me, and I'll send it out to you. But yeah, like I just hopefully these lectures and these things that you experience, the purpose is not so much an ingredients of what people present, but it's more so the open-mindedness and the process of learning. So it's understanding how to learn and how to teach and how to go through these things that's what's going to help you grow. So yeah, and if you haven't yet, go back, look in your ritual. It says in the second degree there's certain sciences you're supposed to study, like actually study them, right? We spend all this time talking mess and being like, this person ain't real Mason, gotta be in their heart and all this other stuff like that. But we don't do some of the simple things that we're told, and says like, hey, if you study these several liberal arts and sciences, you'll you'll see the divine wisdom and the divine design for the grand architect of the universe, as well as I think it would there's no way that you can't come out better if you study those seven. So that's my plug. Again, I thank you all for joining St. Mary's and what we do. Next month we're gonna have a topic that I really don't know anything about. So I'm waiting for that to come out. So I'm gonna be excited. So look out on Facebook and our Instagram and all the other good jazz to be able to register for that one when it comes up because we're gonna solidify the date. Topic I'll tell y'all later. But brother Jack, I appreciate you, sir, and you have
Always.
I appreciate it. So we're gonna end